everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Crypto Tips. I have a very special episode with a very special guest. We have Reggie Middleton, the creator of Veritasium with the DeFi patent in 2013 from Japan. Most recently, he was awarded the patent from the U.S. Patent Office. And also an amazing guy for financial outlooks. You were calling what was going to happen in 2008 before a lot of people did. You've been on the Kaiser report with Max and Stacy several times. So it's really nice to have you on the show. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you for inviting
me. So for those of you who might not have seen my most recent video, I got a little ranty talking about this DeFi patent and what that could mean for an open source community. And I got to admit, my position there was coming from, typically people who have patents do so to protect what they've invented and to penalize those who are infringing on their idea, trying to capitalize on something that you might have invented. So Reggie, right off the bat, I do want to ask you, what was your goal with this patent? Obviously, you applied for it many, many years ago in 2013. So what was your goal with achieving this?
Simply prudent business practices. Prudent business, you build something, you look to protect it. There's a lot of misunderstanding, with all due respect, coming from you, but many others know us community and in the community in general. So one of my skills, at least self-proclaimed skills, it might not be a real one, is the power of explanation. So I'm going to have you walk your audience through the patent process. Do you own a house or an apartment, or do you rent?
No, I own.
You own. Okay. Notwithstanding the fact you might think I'm, a sexy, good-looking guy. Suppose I just move into your apartment, okay? And I move in with a couple of my family members, 6 of my friends. We kick in, I put my feet up on your couch, and then I rent a couple of bedrooms out to strangers, and I profit from it. What would be your reaction?
I'd be pissed because it's my personal property.
What was it again? Your what?
Personal property.
Exactly. Okay. That is the concept of property. Mm-hmm. Your property. Okay. Many people easily understand real property as in real estate or personal property. They have no issues with property rights, 14th Amendment, etc. Mm-hmm. Intellectual property, where patents and trademarks and copyrights come into play, is property as well. And it's just as much property as personal property or real property. What are your remedies for me moving in? Let's take the shotgun remedy out right now, okay? What other remedies would you have?
Calling the police and having you forcibly removed.
How would you do that?
Because it's my private property.
I'm a tall, good-looking, sexy guy. You would do that anyway? Really?
Yes.
Let's get to the essence of why you would do it.
I understand the concept of your patent, but I want to get to this being applied to blockchain technology. For example, you didn't write the code that created Bitcoin. You benefited from that because it was created to be open source. So why are you creating a patent for DeFi or for anything to do with this?
So the reason why I walked you through the example is you didn't create the cement that built your house either, or your apartment. Mm-hmm. But it has your personal property, because you could have built it, you could have used your own capital to buy it, you could have improved it, you bought it from somebody else and made improvements, it's yours. So it's all right to have an issue with somebody else taking ownership of their property, but when it's turned around and someone attempts to take ownership of your property, there's an issue. Now, I'm not saying you individually, because a lot of people have this misunderstanding. Okay, but personal property is one of the tenets of capitalism. Is what this country is built upon. Mm-hmm. Okay, I am by far not the only one that attempts to take ownership of intellectual property. Those who did not do it early on in the crypto space thoroughly regret it. So let's assume you do have a problem with intellectual property and patents. That means you have a problem with Uniswap. Read Uniswap's terms of engagement, terms of use. Read Aave's terms of use. Compound finance. You would have a problem with Coinbase, with Gemini, with the Winklevoss twins. As a matter of fact, anybody who has a lawyer and whose lawyer is doing their job, you would have a problem with. And you have a problem with yourself because you will call the cops on that tall, good-looking brother that moved in. Do you understand the premise?
Sure.
So, I do understand because I think the patents are powerful and wide-ranging. But I thought my idea was powerful and wide-ranging. And it took a lot of expertise, about 25 to 30 years of my experience, roughly 10 years of time, and a team of very, very smart, hardworking people. Over a period of from 2013 to now, that is 11, how many years is that? 8, 9 years? Out of those 9 years, I got paid 2.5 of those years. So I worked the balance of those years for free. I was attacked by the government. They took that pay back, plus all of my personal property and all of my corporate property. And I finally attained this property. And I'm supposed to allow everybody just to move in. I have the same reaction that you have if someone moves into my property. But I find I'm even more benevolent because, you know, you're, and I must admit, rather clickbaitish title, Reggie Middleton, take down DeFi with the, you know, take down DeFi, word bubble coming out of my mouth.
I'll explain why I said that.
Okay. If I believe I created DeFi, I don't know if you have children, but I have children, okay? I love my children. I had them. So if I have my children, I have absolutely no reason to take my children down. As a matter of fact, I love them. And my goal is to have my children flourish throughout the world. So if I create this concept or anything near this concept, and I believe I did create something near this concept, I want it to flourish. So then what motivation would I have to take down my own children?
Why would you kick anyone out of your house?
Well, I wouldn't kick anyone out of my house who are invited to my house. But you kicked out a tall, sexy gentleman. You actually said you would call the police on me. What? We think very much alike, like almost every other human being. It's just that, again, it's very easy to look at it from a malevolent perspective when it's somebody else's property. But when it's your property, first thing is I'm going to call the police. Okay. So I'm not even police. I'm just saying, hey, let's have a conversation. I want to push this industry forward to the extent that it can. I created the equivalent of Uniswaps and Aave's back in 2013. I came up with it. I had code running in the public beta 2014. Imagine if we could have fast forwarded this industry 6 years ago to the point where it is now, or even more advanced. And that's what I'm offering right now. Plus, I'm also offering to attempt to equalize the inequities in the industry. Not naming names, but there are certain members of the industry that have significant political and regulatory favor relative to other members, okay, which gives them a significant advantage. I'm not hating on them. They're doing a good job. But the more competition we have, the better the product we have. Competition is good for the consumer. You are the consumer of this product, as is the country, other companies, etc. So if I have IP that they're all infringing on, I can actually foster competition by negating the inequity from the regulatory perspective. And that's what
you're the gatekeeper.
No, I'm the guy who owns the property. Are you the gatekeeper for your apartment?
Well, you're saying it's people who you, if we're going to go on with that, you're going to say it's people who you invited in your house. So right. You're the owner of the patent, right? It can be implemented basically however you choose. Is that correct?
Well, not quite however I choose, but it's my property.
Enforced if you want to enforce it.
Right. Very much like your house. So you don't call yourself a gatekeeper. You said you're calling the police. Are you a gatekeeper because you own a home? Hard question, easy answer. Are you?
I'm trying to keep this in line with cryptocurrencies and the fact that it's a sector now that that can be incredibly freeing for people. And right. I'm not exactly inspired by someone who's, I understand patents give you power, and they give you the ability to control who has access and can build upon your idea. But I don't think that really, it's my opinion, obviously, it's not fact. That whole video that we've been referencing I posted 2 days ago was entirely my opinion. But
and I'm going to interject facts into your opinion. I'm not even disagreeing with you.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I gave the apartment analogy is because you started this off not talking about crypto. You started this off referencing property, intellectual property. So I'm making this real and factual. Property is property. Property doesn't change because the industry is crypto. If you move from Portugal to Lisbon, it's still an apartment that you own. So the rules of property don't change simply because you move. So if you go from one industry to another, property is still property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I do understand. I'll go through the crypto, the ramifications through the industry as much as I can. But in order to remain factual, you must remain factual. You have absolutely no difference from me in terms of property. As a matter of fact, you are much more aggressive than I am. I never said I was calling the cops on anybody, even if they weren't as sexy as I am. Okay, I'm simply saying, well, let's have a discussion. Let's talk about organizing the industry and licensing. I never said I was calling the cops on anybody. There's only one entity that I can think of that I would consider borrowing from using my IP. And I can't name that entity now because they're very aggressive and very powerful, but we don't get along. Okay, I have a problem with ethics, but I will not name them, but you may be able to figure it out if you use your mind. Okay, so let's talk about crypto, but let's keep it factual. If you're going to discuss property, let's discuss property rights, and the right to own property. Right? You are not a bad person because you have an apartment, and you're not a bad person because you were kicked. Well, you might, if you would kick me out, that doesn't make you a bad person, especially if I came in without asking. And if I didn't pay rent, and if I brought others in and I made money charging them rent on your apartment, you have every right to have an issue. It doesn't make you a bad person. You're not bad for the real estate industry. You're actually good for the real estate industry. Okay, you're simply exercising your property rights. So I'm not avoiding the question. I'm just making it fact. Remember you said you had an opinionated rant, and that's all good. I'm just injecting facts into the opinion. So if you want, you can go on and discuss crypto if you wish, or anything else. I'm very open in the discussion.
I do have a question. Yeah. So how does you owning the patent benefit the DeFi space or whatever qualifies under the peer-to-peer capital transfers?
Well, I just gave what I think, and now this is my opinion, of course, a perfect example of being able to normalize inequities that were formed, possibly because they were very good executors or they had friends in high places, who knows, regulatory disparities. There's one party that is considered a security, a non-security, and it is very, very similar to all the other parties in the space. And they're attacked and considered securities, or they plan to be attacked, or they will be attacked. I'm not a regulator, I'm not a lawmaker, but if all this is happening in my apartment, I could say, well, you could take that room, you could take this room, as long as you're obeying the law and pay the rent. That doesn't make me, that means somebody's in my apartment, like I was in your apartment, and me being more benevolent than you are, because I'm not calling the police on anybody. I'm just saying, you could pay rent for this room, you could pay rent for that.
So what is the rent?
Well, we have to discuss the rent. I don't know. What is the rent for me? Police.
No, you're the one holding the patent. So I remember I saw a list of all these DeFi platforms that are infringing on your patent. So if you were to add all those up, what would your paycheck be?
I don't know. I don't know if paycheck is a descriptive term. So let's go back to the property again, because we're going to keep going back. That's why I started this as a base. What is your paycheck when someone is in your apartment and you call the police on them? What would your paycheck be?
Nothing.
Okay, so
very simple question.
Well, keep returning the property rights every time we veer away from it. And I'm not being difficult. I just want to make sure we keep this realistic. So we're going to keep reverting the property.
I know.
rights.
I want to talk about the thing that we're talking about, which is your patent. I don't want to talk about me calling the police or being, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to answer for whoever is watching this video to understand the benefit of you holding this patent.
The benefit of me holding the patent is that I created an invention and I now have recognized ownership of the invention.
Okay, so you benefit.
I benefit.
Does this patent benefit the cryptocurrency space as a whole or no?
Okay, so we're gonna go back, and this will be my third time going back.
I know you keep talking about the equities, I know, but let's talk about DeFi.
Let's suppose you created Hadi Coin, okay? You raised a lot of money, you created Hadi Coin. Hadi Coin has more transactions per second than Ethereum and Cardano put together. Hadi Coin is proof of significance. Hadi Coin is just superior all the way around. The SEC attacks Hadi Coin because Hadi made it. And they let these other guys go, you know, they have an inferior product, and they did the same thing that you are. If someone can bounce that inequity, would that benefit you? You being treated unfairly relative to everybody else, right, wouldn't cause a problem. Paying millions of dollars in legal fees, potential federal criminal action, and having your assets confiscated and being put out of business. If someone could prevent that from happening, are you telling me, honestly, that you would not benefit from that?
So is this a defensive patent that can be applied to anyone who wants it?
I did ask you a direct question, and you directly avoided it. So I'm going to try it again.
Sorry, repeat your question.
Would you benefit if someone could prevent you from being treated unfairly and putting your project out of business? Would you benefit?
Yeah, as long as, you know, the cost of that wasn't too high. You understand, like, what rules, okay, so what does a project have to do to be under your safety umbrella? What do they have to do to qualify for that?
Okay, so let's get to semantics. Under my safety umbrella is
your patent.
Okay, well, it's not that simple. So you go through the claims. Have you read the patent?
It's very dense legal knowledge. No, I'm not a legal professional. I can't adequately understand a patent. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, do you understand basically what the patent's about? If not, I could walk through that. You understand the basic? Excuse me?
I said, please go. For everyone who's listening to who hasn't read it, I think it's helpful.
So what I patented was a conditional transfer of value on a peer-to-peer basis with zero or low trust. So basically, if you do a Bitcoin transaction where you send one coin from yourself to me, okay, that wouldn't be covered under that. Okay, because it's a simple transaction. If you were to make that transaction contingent upon something else, okay, without having to rely on an authoritative third party, a broker, exchange, a company, or anybody else to make that transaction happen, then there's a chance that the patent covers it. Okay, so it is more advanced. It's like a more advanced financial version of a simplified transaction. Okay, I coined it initially the peer-to-peer capital markets because my initial plan was to recreate capital markets on a totally independent, fully distributed versus decentralized basis. So to go through the basics, traditional finance is hub and spoke. You have this center in the US, what's called the central bank. Then you have money center banks around it. And then you have national and regional banks around that. And then you have users, mom and pops, small businesses, large businesses, et cetera. But it's basically a hub in the middle, right? And spokes going out. A decentralized system is able to mix that up some. So now you have little central banks here, okay? And then little money center banks, et cetera. But you still have control. You still have gatekeepers somewhat. A fully distributed system means Heidi has just as much access and power as Bloomberg, as Thomas, as Reggie, as Paul, as anybody else. So instead of having a spoke in the middle, right? And we have
like
to go
clusters.
Right, you have dots everywhere. And each dot communicate with any other dot with full faith and authority. That is my goal. That was the original idea, and that is the goal. And that is what makes the idea powerful, in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion now. I'm going to separate when I speak opinion from what I think is fact. So as we move forward, the industry when I first started in the industry in 2013, I read the Bitcoin Wiki. Was the first thing that I read. And I was like, wow, that's a damn good idea. And I read the white paper. I was like, whoa. I'm looking over my shoulder, like, did anybody else pay attention? The difference was I come from a hardcore finance investment valuation background. Self-taught, okay? But I ate my own dog food. So if I didn't do well, I couldn't eat. And I had to do well or else I'd starve. I approached the Bitcoin Wiki, the Bitcoin white paper, the entire concept very, very differently from what I think the populace was at the time. They were mostly cypherpunks, developers, and engineers. I'm a technologist and I'm a nerd. I like techie stuff, but I look at everything in terms of value proposition. You know, what's the value? What's the cost? What's the risk? And what can we do with it? And doing that, I read the Bitcoin Wiki, the Bitcoin white paper, and the first thing that jumped out at me was smart contracts and the ability to do conditional value transfer. I'm like, wow, that's a good idea. I called around to everybody and I asked for examples of this. They said, well, there are no real working examples. You know, we have examples, we have a sample code, you know, but it doesn't do anything to compile it. And I found it hard to believe that nobody would focus on that. And instead they were focusing on the price of the little bits going up and down in value and transferring it, basically money remittances. So after calling around for a while, I ended up believing a guy who's actually very prominent in the industry, but I'm not going to mention his name. I ended up believing him. I hired some developers. We clustered something together. I took the ISDA agreement, that's the International Swap Dealers Association agreement, roughly 96 pages of a boilerplate, how to do a swap. And I made it a blockchain transaction. Now, out of that 96 or 92 pages, about 88 of them entail how to prevent me from cheating you, counterparty risk. Using the blockchain as the custodian of value, you take the counterparty risk out, which meant it's zero trust or low trust, and that big document became a page or two. And then that we created our version of a smart contract on the Bitcoin blockchain in 2013. The first one was October 2013. The first one that actually settled without a glitch was in December 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, going by memory. And that's how it got started. And we filed patent application for the concept. And we had a very, very rough, wild, but interesting ride going forward. Nobody could ever consider me a patent troll because I built the first blockchain swap that I know of, zero trust blockchain swap, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't want to make this a conversation of first because I think that's unproductive. What I was doing was I'm trying to build a better way of transacting value. In my way of doing things, I would make currency itself obsolete. See, currency is a proxy for value that is easy to transact. So way back in the caveman days or cave girl days, you would be transacting value. I'd have to take, I'm a farmer, you're a fisherwoman, okay? In order to exchange, I would give you a cow, and the cow doesn't cooperate, I have to carry it. It's a lot of working out, right? You would bring fish. I'd exchange my cow for fish. Your fish are easily spoiled. My cow is very difficult to transport. So eventually we came up with things we can exchange in proxy, as a proxy for the cow and the fish. Cowrie shells, rocks, pieces of metal, currency, okay? And once we all agreed that this cowrie shell equals this many bushels of fish or that many cows, we can do business. And that's basically the beginning of modern economics, okay? Now, as systems become more advanced and countries became entities in and of themselves in terms of economic animals, abuses started to form, and these abuses became acceptable, such as devaluing the currency when economic value started leaching out of the country. So often, instead of attempting to increase economic value, you simply decrease the value of the currency, which gave a similar outcome of increased economic value, but it wasn't, it's cheating, devaluing currency. By enabling pure peer-to-peer barter, you don't need a proxy. I can actually trade you fractional cows for fish. And we don't need to actually have a currency as a go-between. And not only that, we don't need a bank, an exchange, a broker, a government agency, et cetera, as a go-between. Now, saying this makes the government agencies and bureaucrats upset, but I'm not trying to put you out of business. I'm just explaining how the system works. The system is very good for the governments as well, but that's a different issue. Okay, so in doing this, we are basically bringing back barter using 2021 technology and making things much, much, much more efficient. We are creating currency out of actual value and then eliminating the need for currency as a proxy. Yeah,
sorry.
I
was just going to ask, applying digital representations of actual commodities, how is that not a proxy in some regard?
Explain what you mean.
I mean, like you're I guess this is pretty, I don't know, basic, but it's like, if you have a literal cow and a literal sack of fish, but on the blockchain or digitally, it's still something that's representing it. I guess that's, never mind. Never mind.
Good question, actually. Don't be ashamed of it. That was a very good question. So it's a representation of it, but it's not a proxy. A proxy is like okay. So what you would have, you have a cow, you have a representation of the cow, you have the proxy as a go-between, then you have the representation of the fish, then you have the fish. In the proxy, the currency as a go-between away, because that proxy, that go-between, is easily manipulated, and then that affects the relationship between the fish, the cow, the representations, and those doing the transaction. An example, and I'm sure you've heard this ad nauseum in the crypto community. If not, you definitely hear it in the financial investment community. Over the last 2 years, they say the U.S. has printed roughly 30% of currency outstanding.
Yep.
That's a 30% haircut for sitting around for 2 years under lockdown. It's not a desirable event at all. Okay. And the US dollar is strong, which means, and I'm making the 30%, I'm just picking up, I don't have it exactly memorized, but it seems
I think it's more like 40, to be honest.
So 40, 30, 20% is outrageous. 15 is outrageous. Say at 30 or 40%. The dollar is very, very strong internationally. So if the dollar is strong at 40%, that means the other major nations have destroyed their currency. Destroyed. The DXY, the dollar DXY, the dollar index, if you take it over the 2-year period, it's done rather well, which is amazing because you would think it would do badly. But the European, the largest contributor to the opposing factors of the dollar and the DXY is the euro. And the Europeans have, the ECB has destroyed the euro. Not destroyed, significantly devalued. Now there's a reason for it, and it's a valid reason for it. But, and I'm not of the camp that says, devaluing currency is bad, bad, bad. It's the way the countries are run. But it is a short-term emergency stopgap. It's not made in perpetuity. It shouldn't be made to run a country in perpetuity. What you need to do is you need to increase economic output. That is easier said than done, but it's not impossible. Europe's problem is they try to replicate the United States, but they try to do it in the short term. United States is like a Eurozone, our 50 states, spread over a large geographic area with different cultures and different laws, et cetera. And then we created one union with it, with one currency. And that's what the EU is trying to do, but they're trying to take a shortcut. So they want to do it without the Revolutionary War, without killing 10% of the male population in the Civil War. They want to do it without having the largest military or the largest economy. They want to do it and pretend that everybody speaks one single language, US, instead of 43 different languages, on and on and on and on. And they want to do it in 40 years versus 300. Anyway, without African slavery for free labor for 250 years. And so it's not that easy. Okay, so this is going off into an economics macro lesson, but honestly, macro and valuation fundamentals are key to building a strong crypto system if it's going to become financial. And that's probably why I was able to get that patent in before everybody else, because that's the background I came from. There's a lot of these in there now, but they're in there here like 8-9 years after the fact.
Did you have to do very many edits to it to get it approved in the US?
we fought and fought and fought and fought, back and forth, fought very, very hard. Put it this way, it was far from a Christmas gift.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a lot of fighting, 7 years, 6 to 7 years of back and forth, fighting. Not physical fighting, but, back and forth,
Do you, is it still the end product, the patent that you were awarded? Is it something that you wanted to, like, does it fulfill everything that you wanted when you first started the application?
No, the patent was simply one part of doing business. Like when you business, you get a business certificate, you buy ink, you get a computer, you hire staff. It's just one of the check boxes that you fill out when you're starting a business. It wasn't the end all and be all. At least I didn't think it was until my business was collapsed through litigation. But it was just part of proven business. A lot of entities didn't do it back then. They didn't take IP seriously. I was a self-employed businessman throughout the vast majority of my adult life. I didn't have the luxury of being idealisms that couldn't make me money or prevent my money from being taken. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I just didn't have that luxury. If you go through, my life has been much, much rougher than the typical crypto guy. So I've learned many lessons the hard way. But now, if you take a look at it, like I said, almost everybody takes IP seriously. Almost any big name you can think of. They either have a raft of patents pending. They have commercial licenses that exclude you from using it for commercial purposes. They have terms of service and terms of use that restrict you from doing X, Y, and Z. And doesn't make them bad. It makes them practical. If they were public entities, they'd be sued if they didn't do that for malfeasance. Or let me not use a legal term. Sue for not protecting shareholders' interests.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but there's one concept that I just can't forget, and that's just you keep referencing that you can protect people from the SEC or from whatever government is going to try to regulate them and smother them out.
I have to correct you. I
Okay.
didn't say.
Okay.
I didn't say. Okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Powerful entity, and they have shown that they have no problem doing harm to me. So I have to be very careful.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah. Okay. Okay. But this concept of if a project was, and I know there's no perfectly decentralized project that exists yet. There's always centralization in some form, but some are definitely more robust or moving more in that way with decentralized autonomous organizations. And so like for me, that would be the most ideal way to facilitate the free way of how this cryptocurrency space can continue to evolve, rather than, I don't know, just something. It's a personal thing of my opinion, is like going to the government that you're ultimately kind of trying to disrupt is kind of ironic of getting a patent and doing it that way, rather than trying to, I guess, be more subversive about it. What are your thoughts on that?
Not necessarily trying to disrupt the government. I'm trying to make a more egalitarian environment. For instance, using my invention, I would assume the 9-year-old girl in Sri Lanka, that 11-year-old boy in Abuja, Nigeria, who grew up 6 generations deep trading commodities and maize, can outtrade that PhD on a Goldman Sachs prop desk. The only thing is he simply doesn't have the same access. You technology, my invention, my concept, he can. It's survival of the meritorious fittest. Okay, versus those who have the best access, the highest gatekeepers, etc. Now, I'm trying to congeal the question because I want to answer your question directly. You may be right, actually. So, I don't want this to be confrontational, because you may be right, and I'd love to be educated because I love to learn. Give me an example of a decentralized platform that you think achieves what you're saying that I should aspire to.
Well, like, okay, I want to say Uniswap, but like you said, they have patents, and I know that they're centralized as well. They have offices, I believe, located in the US. But um, my point is, like, we've heard from Gensler, we've heard from, yeah,
So, okay, I want to walk through an
yeah,
example. You could be right. So let's walk through it. If you want to pick Uniswap, let's use Uniswap. Okay? Because a lot of people say Uniswap is decentralized.
mm-hmm.
If you have a computer in front of you, try and trade a very token, which is our token, our company's token, to Uniswap. You can't. And it says for legal reasons.
No, I know. And also 1inch was a decentralized exchange I thought was great. And then all of a sudden they're saying if you're a US citizen, you can't use it. So like, that's what I mean, as time moves on, we're going to find that more and more of these are more centralized than we might have thought. The best decentralized exchange that I can think of that I know of is BISC, BISQ, but it doesn't do smart contracts or lending or liquidity providing or anything. But in my opinion, like, that's the best version that we have. But
let's use BISC. Is BISC the decentralized Bitcoin exchange?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the old school DEX. It's with just peer-to-peer liquidity. There's no pools or anything like that. So it's not a favorite use for people, but
just walk through it. See, decentralized is unrealistic. A lot of people do
no,
this.
I know.
Okay. And so if you value that concentrate, so if profits come in or revenue comes in and it benefits somebody, which is not a bad thing. I am super pro-capitalist. Okay. Let's call it a spade a spade. If you're making money from it, it's centralized. Decentralized means you cannot profit from it. If you're profiting from it, then capital is centralizing somewhere. The most of the entities that you mentioned are venture capital funded. Central. They cut those checks to somebody somewhere. Okay. Yeah. I live in Brooklyn. The guy who started Uniswap is in Brooklyn and saw their initial funders, Consensus, almost walking distance from me. Uniswap, they got started because they forked their code from Bancor. Okay. Did they pay Bancor for it? No. They're making billions off of Bancor's idea. Bancor's idea infringes on my patent. The reason why Uniswap didn't write the Bancor code to come up with the idea, right? I came up with the idea. Bancor had one that infringed. I'm not saying they copied on it. It could have been, who knows, but the facts are it infringes, in my opinion. Okay. Uniswap got $100,000, forked Bancor, okay, made some changes. They got additional funding. They launched, and eventually they became very popular. And then someone said, hey, you're doing very well. You didn't have to pay for it. I'm going to do the same thing. Nomi Chef came, forked Uniswap, right? Changed the incentive mechanism, raised some money, took 50% of Uniswap's equity. Guys from Binance said, hey, it's working. Pancake Swap guys came, they forked Sushi Swap. Pancake Swap is because of Binance's liquidity, is one of the largest of the swaps. Now, luckily for me, since nobody wants to create their own code and they just copy everybody else, and the first one they copied from infringed from they just reverberated and put my idea throughout the entire universe. Okay, but do you really think it's back to your idea of an apartment? People just come in, set up, put their feet up on their desk. I'm not going to do it right here. I'm not going to camera over. And then they charge rent. You said you're calling the cops on them. So what Uniswap did was they changed their terms of their commercial license. So you cannot make money off of this for 2 or 3 years, etc. And then everybody else started doing it as well. Okay, that was proven business. Now, and I'm not knocking Uniswap, they're doing business, but you took somebody else's code for free. You benefit from it, and now you're trying to prevent others from doing it. Now that's business, but in this super idealistic world of everything should be free, it sounds wrong. That super idealistic world is wrong. You cannot make money by giving your product away for free, or you cannot make money selling a product that your competitor could give away for free. Okay, It's just bad business. It's not even fair. Okay, you can have an open source environment. You can have a lot of progress and still have ownership of your property. And if you disagree, I'm coming to Portugal and I'm moving in with you. So, think about it. See, when I bring, and I've had this discussion several times, you can tell I've practiced, right? When I force everybody to think in terms of property, their own property, totally different story. Mm-hmm. Totally different story. You can't take my property, you can't come in my house, but you're supposed to let somebody come into your house. You just can't do it to myself. So I just force everybody to come back to the facts and reality and think of property as property. I'm not calling the police on anybody unless you threaten me directly. But I do want everybody I want more meritorious competition. Imagine where we would be in a blockchain race if we had meritorious competition and everybody who wanted to compete didn't have to worry about getting dragged away from a regulator as one entity does it. And I love that entity, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of guys are right in Brooklyn, but it is not prudent business. I think is an extreme policy ever in the US. And I am biased as hell because they destroyed me, my family, very, very bad things. But I'm able to put that bias aside and run business objectively, which is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I think having the patent in a very, very benevolent and helpful way, because I can tell you right now, if Goldman had this patent, it'd be a different situation, very much so. I'll tell you right now, or JP Morgan, who I also believe infringed on the patent.
Who you also what?
Believe infringed on the patent.
Oh yeah. That's what, yeah, I was reading some Reddit posts about it and people were like, yeah, I think it's basically like the banking system, and there's a lot of people speculating on how to actually enforce this, but.
Well, it's not hard to enforce it because you enforce it for someone who makes money off of it. And if you make money off of it, then you're centralized enough to.
Exactly. Yeah. But how do you stop someone from forking the code? How do you shut down the people who are running the network?
I'm not looking to shut down. And that's I'm not looking to shut. I started this off. I'm not shutting anybody down. I just don't want everybody moving into my house, charging rent in my rooms because my daughter needs a place to sleep. Okay. The mantra of me trying to shut things down, it's just not true. It's just not it. It's off in the wrong direction. Maybe I need to go visit Reddit and, make a presence there. But, I never said I was going to do that. I never looked like I was going to do it. I have no idea where this came from. Nobody accuses Coinbase of this or the Gemini twins, Winklevoss twins. They don't say it about Uniswap, and Uniswap is people out actually. I can't trade my token on Uniswap.
I think the difference is between, again, this is speculation in my opinion, but the difference between, let's say, Uniswap, Gemini, Coinbase, everyone else who has patents, and you, and why maybe you're getting far more attention is because this aboriginal DeFi patent, you're the guy who is patented, you cover everything, it's not specific, it's not really brand specific or anything like that. So I think that's why maybe a lot of people feel threatened by it, because then on the surface level, it's like, okay, one guy now is the gatekeeper of DeFi. So, I understand why you're probably getting a lot more fire from this one than others.
Where do we get gatekeeper? I have not kept anybody's gate.
It's an implication. It's an assumption of patent holders, I think.
Assumption is not being made by any other patent holder besides me, right? Everybody who does prudent business, if they invent something, they patent it. Because if you don't patent it, then someone's going to take it from you, and they could use it there against you, which is happening. Want to discuss, just go back to the property discussion again, right? We have intellectual property, we have real property, your personal property, your apartment, but there's financial property, investment property. I don't have the same access. There's human capital, political capital. I don't have the same access. Look at the CEO of Coinbase, who rightfully so was bitching and complaining that he told the SEC that he was going to do a lend product. And they said, if you do that, we're going to sue you. And he had a fit. And I understand that. I was there. I told the SEC what I was doing. The SEC didn't give me the courtesy of saying, if you don't do this, we're going to sue you. They just sued me.
Yeah.
That's it. I tried to go get venture capital financing. I have an outstanding track record. I produced the collapse of Bear Stearns, the Lehman Brothers, commercial and real estate property, European sovereign debt crisis, Google up the largest REIT in the country, second largest collapse in a bankruptcy, outstanding track record. I couldn't get venture capital financing. I was shut out of that. Nobody's coming to my aid. Nobody's doing a show saying venture capital is destroying DeFi. Okay. So when I don't have access to capital, it's not an issue. Okay. Someone doesn't have access to my idea that I invented, and I'm trying to destroy the industry. I'm just here to set things straight. I believe that if I way the industry would be moving forward much faster. I was in negotiations. I'm talking to people yesterday about taking the Lightning Network and eliminating the need for stablecoins to it. You know, if protocols such as, say, Ethereum, well, Ethereum is a big boy, but Ethereum or any of Cardano or EOS, etc., were to decide to license this technology at the protocol level, that means that the license is built in. So if you use that blockchain, you never have to worry about IP issues, which means all big banks and all swaps and all lending platforms can use that blockchain and by default be licensed for it. And I would prefer that. Less paperwork for everybody. Okay, you can move that forward very quickly. I'm full of ideas. I don't have the resources to execute on everything, primarily because I don't have access. The government doesn't come and give me a warning. They just come after me. Okay, venture capitalists don't spike my track record. They just, and I could continue on, but I don't want to make this a bitch fest. So you understand what I mean.
Do you feel comfortable talking about the SEC, what happened with the settlement and everything?
It wasn't a settlement.
I thought I read there was like a $9.5 million settlement.
So don't believe everything you read.
Okay.
So you read there was a $9.5 million settlement. How about the several billion dollar Very? Did you read about that?
The what? Sorry.
Several billion dollar Very tokens that were falsified.
Yeah, no, I know they seized, like 98% of the supply. That's what I was going to ask about is there's a settlement, right? And then like, how do you move forward from that? Because are those coins still seized?
Yeah.
So you have no access, like they don't release those or anything. So like, what is the plan with Veritasium and the tokens? Because now it's 2 million rather than 100.
They're 2 million. And if this was a security, but it's not. But if basically SEC did a 98% share buyback for the Veritasium holders. So, kudos to them. And I am seriously considering, I'm still weighing the options, but I'm seriously considering allowing the extant Very tokens to be used as a discount mechanism for the IP, which means if the tokens, you get the IP cheaper than if you didn't use them. Taking my opinion now, and this is my opinion, not fact. I'm not a IP attorney. I'm not a engineer or a developer. I'm just a dad, and my kids don't even want to hang with me, so I'm barely that, right? But if my opinion holds true, the Ethereum network infringes on the IP itself, the Bitcoin Lightning Network, most of the swaps and lending platforms, etc. So do you see the potential value of those tokens? And the SEC allegations were, not flattering. They alleged fraud and unregistered securities, and it's a modus operandi. They said that I filed international patent applications that I knew would never be issued, and so I fraudulently, market that to token holders. Okay, so hey, what are we discussing now?
Let's see. I looked at the GitHub. I wasn't sure if it was the right one for Veritasium, but I was wondering if there was some kind of a thing with the SEC lawsuit that like you weren't allowed to work on the project. Or I was wondering, maybe I had I just looked at from coingecko.com. I looked at the GitHub link there and it said like there hasn't been any commits since like 2018.
Well, our GitHub is private, the one that we actually do work with.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't see it anyway, but we haven't done any development because you were basically bankrupted by the SEC. Is a comeback. Okay, if you take a look at look at every single ICO that tangled with the SEC, and they've effectively been put out of business. 100%. Even the ones that had very favorable settlements, such as Block 1 EOS. very favorable settlement. They took basically 100% from me, 99.9% from me. They took the equivalent of, I think, 0.04% from them, and their token is not considered a security. But they're still not flourishing because of a variety of reasons. I'm not going to opine of why they're not flourishing, but I know the SEC thing didn't help. You have Kick Interactive, you had Gram token for Telegram, you have Ripple. Ripple's defense team includes the ex-chairperson from the SEC from the previous administration, plus a list of et cetera. So I don't think it's good for development in the country. If there's an actual true fraud, go after them. But it doesn't seem like they're going after the frauds. It seems like they're going after the potential successes.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
But take that back, because again, I don't want the ire of these guys. Oh, if I'm right in my opinion, well, I'm not gonna comment on it. But it's not just projects that would infringe if they use certain IP. But I'm not going to speak on it because I don't think that's safe or appropriate in this venue.
Okay. Do you want me to edit that out, by the way? Okay. Yeah, that's basically so having the SEC having done the settlement, are you now, is Veritasium still labeled as security?
Well, it doesn't really matter if the SEC, it matters, but from a legal perspective, the SEC is not a court of law. Their opinion is the civil courts that decide whether something's a security or not. The very community that people who have allegedly defrauded are actually very active, and they, on their own, 100% without my involvement, hired an attorney, a popular attorney, Jeremy Hogan, actually, to write a no action letter request to the SEC to allow them to use the tokens without fear of retribution. And he would not respond in writing. They responded verbally. And the community then attempted to force a written response by doing a FOIA request. First, they did a request for response. They did a FOIA request, of which the SEC gave a no response. They couldn't find anything. So, there's a lot of back and forth. The community is very, very active. There's a DAO now, and the DAO is to find partnership opportunities through the IP. And it's different from many other DAOs, and I'm not involved in it. By the way, just for the record, to my knowledge, I don't own one single Berry token. So it is by far the most decentralized token available. Whereas the token doesn't own one.
You can't pull a Tom Lee.
The DAO interviews people with skills, and you get in by having specific skills and being good at what you do, or having a strong track record. And the membership is growing quickly, and it's impressive. And basically, I gave an example of they did a proposal to do a research report on JP Morgan and JP Morgan's currency, which they allege infringes significantly. Okay. And they did that on their own, autonomously, without me. And they're doing several others. You're asking about the crypto community. Let's think back to the early internet days. I don't know how old you are, but going too far back, you might not remember. But the 1990s, where people actually called specific companies internet companies. Today, can you think of an internet company?
No.
Why? Because the internet is pervasive, right? 15 years, you're not going to be able to think of a blockchain or a crypto community because it's going to be pervasive. Just like there's no such thing as an internet company, there really is no such thing as a crypto community, company. Now, if anybody should be concerned about significant disruption in the way they do business in terms of IP, it's not going to be Uniswaps and everybody else. They pay their license fee and go on. It's going to be the big money center banks. Not threatening them at all. They can just pay the license fee like everybody else. When you have a website, you put your money, you put your content up on Amazon's AWS service, and you pay them, their fee, annual monthly fee. There's nobody saying, hey, someone's going to put Heidi website out of business. No, Heidi's paying Amazon the fee to use their service. It's their property. She's paying it. It's just the cost of business. Now, if you choose not to pay them and you're on their property, on their servers, well, then something's going to happen. They'll probably just take you off. Okay, it's just that simple. The apocalyptic, he's going to destroy the industry. You know, it's stuff of Netflix, but it's just not the reality.
Yeah.
Unless there's an actual beef, like we're not going to pay you and we're going to take your apartment anyway. Now we have to bring a shotgun method in because now it's, you know, it's a little different. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand too what you're talking about, the really extreme ideologies of how it can be. And I've definitely been susceptible to this as well, as like, oh, in a perfect crypto world, everything would be perfectly decentralized and anonymous and free and whatever. But the reality is if you want crypto to be adopted by the masses, there's going to have to be sacrifices made. And I hope that your patent is a what's the word? Practical tool to help facilitate that. I would look forward to see how it develops in the future. And I wish you the best, obviously, and how it's applied. I hope it's done well. So
about 20 seconds ago, you gave me the most beautiful smile. Have I won you over? Have I?
I was going into this genuinely hoping that you would enlighten me in ways that obviously I had not been thinking about, because I am prone to that ideology of like, what? I'm not too proud to admit, you know, if you're wrong or whatever. I think it's healthy to have conversations with people from other, you know, forms of perspective and to be able to be open to it. So I'm really glad that you came on.
Let me say this. I want to thank you for being open-minded enough to allow me to speak my piece and listen. Okay? Because not everybody does that, you know. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot to be learned from everyone. So yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? How people can reach you, what you're working on? Like what are the next steps with this patent and implementing it?
Reach out to me on Twitter at Reggie Middleton. And I'll be at the North American Bitcoin Conference starting tomorrow. And I'm easy to talk to. You know, just don't come threatening my family and trying to beat me up. I don't respond well to that, but I'm very easy to talk to. And I do think the patent is a powerful asset, but I worked hard. I came up with the idea. I don't sleep at night. You know, I got paid 2.5 out of the last 9 years. And then I got that paid plus 10 times that taken from me. It's not as if I sit here and, you know, make things up. Whoever calls me a patent troll, the definition of a patent troll is someone who buys intellectual property and doesn't participate in the industry and then sues others. Mm-hmm. I built the first blockchain that I know of. Okay. So if I'm a patent troll, then everybody else who tries this is a patent troll. So let's stop with the name calling. Simply do business. Okay. I think, and I'm biased, of course, the right entity has this because, you know, culturally, this wouldn't have came out of Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan because the mindset is different. Quarterly bonuses, profit, etc. I think 10 years at a time. So my next quarter is 10 years from now, where their next quarter is their quarterly bonus. Not trying to deride them, but that's the culture. Okay. And I don't seek money. You know, I can live in squalor as long as I'm happy and my, you know, family around. So since I'm not money driven, I can seek other goals. So if you're really concerned, the right person has this. Or, you know, it could be much worse if other entities would have had it. Okay, but they did have it and they earned it and they created it. More power to them. It's theirs. They earned it. I'm not going to sit there and deride them because they created something and I didn't. You know, if it's really that big issue, go create something and then you can have people try to take it from you. Okay, but I really would like to see a space where meritorious effort is what gets you rewarded, not where you were born, what color your skin is, what your religion is, what your gender is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Totally agree.
Anybody interested in joining VeriDAO, go to the Veritasium official Telegram group and make a request and they'll get to you. that is totally community driven. Not only do I not have a single berry, I don't run the Telegram groups either. I'm just a contributor.
Can you tell them I did not delete your comment? I got roasted. I woke up in the morning. I was like, dude, I didn't delete a comment. I don't know if there's some conspiracy, I'm telling you, with YouTube. It kept sending I approved it like 10 times. I replied to it so many times and it kept sending it back to the like flagged section. It was so annoying.
Okay, cut her a break. She said she didn't delete it, cut her a break. You know, she's here. She honestly, look at the big smile. It's like 9,000 teeth. I'm liking it. So it looks like are we friends now?
Yeah, we're friends, Reggie, for sure.
Call the cops?
Sorry, no, I won't call the cops on you. Come on up to Portugal. Okay, thanks, Reggie. Yeah, I wish you all the best and take care.
Okay.